Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, and I'm so happy to be just doing a regular old language learning video today. I think this year so far, it's been a little crazy. There's so many plans that are just massive that I'm kind of finalizing and doing all sorts of things, just getting everything ready for some big announcements coming soon. And so, yeah, it's been a bit crazy, and I've had a lot of videos like announcing Journaly or a Journaly update or announcing the multilingual book club, which I'm so excited about. So anyway, it's been exciting, but it feels good to be back just doing a good old language learning video. And today we're going to be talking about a really cool topic, which is sort of a very interesting aspect of being an advanced learner, where I think that the things we have to do in order to get to the next level, right? Because in my opinion, being advanced, that's a very vague statement, right? And I think that sort of the journey between low advanced to sort of middle advanced to high advanced, if we think of it like that, it's quite a long journey. And so the things we have to do to push ourselves forward, I think can sometimes be a little bit perhaps counterintuitive. And there is a certain aspect that it almost feels like the return on investment is necessarily low in terms of quantity. But in reality, some of these things that we can do are actually incredibly valuable, but I think it's just not so obvious. And so we're going to talk about some of these things with some concrete examples from my own language learning experience right now, as we always do. But first of all, right before we jump in, just cheers. I've got a Blue Wave mug here, got these beans from Ritual, which is one of my favorite coffee companies in San Francisco, and I haven't had Ritual beans for a long time. So cheers to just an epic day of learning languages. That's really damn good. Okay, so this topic is a bit tricky to, frame in a concise way. So let me just start right in with some examples. So when I'm an advanced learner, one thing that I do a lot, which I think a lot of people seem to be surprised by, is that I actually do love going all the way back to the basics and reviewing stuff, right? And so an example from right now is with my Spanish. So I came back to Spanish a little while ago. It's been a really fun journey, interesting story. It all started with a video I did in Spanish about my little language projects, which you can of course find here and down below in the description. At this point, I feel comfortable saying that I think my Spanish is at an advanced level. Now, exactly where it is on that scale, I'm not entirely sure. Of course, I'm biased and I'm, assessing myself. I think that my Spanish is a pretty comfortable, somewhere in the C1 sort of range. Again, just for symbolic purposes, assessing where I am. And so one thing I've been doing with Spanish is I actually decided to go and just redo the entire Babbel Spanish course catalog, at least the core sort of lessons that they have, right? Starting at the very beginning all the way through what they call an advanced level. And I think that for a lot of people that's surprising, right? Like, why would you go back to the very beginning of Babbel, right? Like, that's what you do when you're a beginner. If you're advanced now, how does that make sense? And so there's a part of this which is pretty obvious, right? It's that, well, I inevitably have gaps, right? And especially with a language like Spanish, where I've been learning Spanish for a very long time, but it has been very bumpy. It's been a bumpy road, right? Like, so I started out when I was 16, had no clue about learning languages. And so it was very haphazard, right? I was doing Spanish for a while, then I went away from it completely. And then at a certain point I went to Mexico, and I was in a tiny village in the mountains of Nuevo León, and I was volunteering there. Of course, I got to speak a ton of Spanish, but even then, my Spanish was pretty bad. I could speak, right? I could communicate in Spanish. My listening comprehension was really bad. I really struggled. And then over the years, I barely spoke Spanish. Then I ended up going to live in Barcelona twice, but, both for just a few months, so not a terribly long time. So it's, it's a language that over time I have picked up, some pretty good skills, but it hasn't been this one long sort of linear path. And so, yeah, we get gaps. So the obvious part of this is that, yeah, I want to go back through and just find the gaps. But the thing is, it starts to feel like there's a very low return on investment. And there kind of is in terms of quantity, right? Because I could study Babel for 3 hours, right? I could go through a whole bunch of stuff. And to be honest, most of it, I already know, right? I'll pick up a few words here and there. The first thing I'll say about that is it's still valuable, right? I'm still, refreshing stuff that I already knew. I'm still reinforcing all these things. And frankly, I enjoy doing Babel. So anything you enjoy doing, I think, is worthwhile. But the thing is that, yeah, every now and again, I discover something that I didn't know, or that I actually had wrong. So recently, for example, I realized, so in Spanish, 2 ways to say I remember something. You could say recuerdo, or you could say me acuerdo, based on my current understanding, right? So 2 very similar, acordarse, recordar. Now, for years, I've been saying it wrong. I've been saying me recuerdo. It's subtle, but I've been saying this wrong the whole time. And so I just figured this out a few weeks ago. And so the reason why this video is helpful, I think, is it's to point out the fact that, okay, yes, it's true that, for every hour I spend doing this activity, I may not get that much out of it. I may spend 3 hours, 4 hours, not really learning a whole lot of new stuff, right? Again, I still think it's valuable, but if you're just looking at this, in very pure terms of, am I learning new stuff? Not a lot. However, I still think that this is kind of a necessary activity for me, at least, because when I do find those gems, right, those things that, wow, I never knew this, or wow, I've been getting this wrong for years. And by the way, I say that a lot, right? Saying, oh, I remember that one time, or oh, I don't remember this. Like, it's really common. So I have been making this mistake over and over and over again. And I'm pretty sure since I discovered this a few weeks ago, I've never made that mistake again. And I think I'm unlikely to make it again. So yeah, when you're advanced, you want to find those gaps, right? If you're still trying to get better, if you're trying to become like really high level advanced or near native eventually, this is part of what you have to do. You got to find those gaps. And it is true that you could just go about your day, you could do mass exposure, and you may well eventually fill the gaps in that way as well, right? But even then, you could argue it feels like sort of low return on investment if we're just talking about new things we're learning in the language. If you watch a TV show for 7 hours, and you only pick up like 1 or 2 of these, gaps. All right, maybe that feels like you had a good time, but not terribly efficient for learning languages. But I think that's just part of the reality of starting to get really good at something. Yeah, it takes a while to find those things. So the thing is that with vocabulary, that's easy. In terms of like, yeah, you turn on a TV show, you turn on a movie, you open up a novel, even if you're really advanced, you're gonna encounter a lot of new words. And so that makes it feel like it was really, really high return on investment, right? But the thing is, there's so many words out there, it's probably always gonna be like that, right? But in terms of finding these critical, like grammatical gaps, right, that you have, or grammatical mistakes and misunderstandings, that is to me a lot more valuable, even if it's a bit harder to find them. So yeah, I think I'm just trying to communicate in this video that while a lot of people do find it hard to understand why I am so happy to spend time redoing the entire Babel catalog, when in the same time I could be watching movies, I could be reading books, I could do loads of cool stuff. Well, it's because at the end of the day, my Spanish is fundamentally better now, and I haven't finished yet. Right now I'm in there like I think I'm just about to finish their pre-intermediate courses and I'm gonna start the intermediate level. So I'm not even done yet, but my Spanish is fundamentally better because of doing this. And so I would encourage all of you to do stuff like that, you know? Don't be afraid to go back to the beginner resources when you're an advanced learner and, you know, find those gaps. But of course, I would love to hear your thoughts on this because I do think a lot of people, like I said, they seem to find it surprising what I do. So I would love to know, have I convinced you? Do you agree with this? Do you do this yourself? Or do you disagree? Please feel free to let me know. And with that, I will leave you with one last sip of coffee and I wish you an epic day of language learning.